just completely unacceptable.
It is disgusting. It is revolting.
They were just shocking comments.
He outraged our sporting nation.
You know what they remind me of? Year 10 girls. Now, I'm sorry to undermine the whole sport, but that's what I think of it, so you can stick it up your ass.
Triple M's response was swift.
Marty Sheargold has been forced to apologise.
Axed over deeply offensive on-air comments.
Shock jocks have been a staple of Aussie radio for decades.
You absolutely gutless wonder. Got any men's sport? Hang on that bench! You're gone!
Going mostly unchecked by regulators.
I mean, it is vulgar.
What's your biggest number like letting all the blokes run a train? Like, how many guys have you had it go at once?
But there's a group of online activists moving to stop them in their tracks. Mad witches, and Jenny Hill is at the helm.
What we object to is content that is demeaning to women, that is objectifying, that is sexualising, racist, homophobic, transphobic. So it runs the whole gamut of abuse towards anyone, basically, who's not a straight white male.
MFW formed in 2016 after Peter Dutton sent this message about journalist Samantha Maiden to journalist Samantha Maiden. And in 2019, they started rallying advertisers on 2GB to boycott Alan Jones's show after he said,
"She's a clown, Jacinda Ardern, a complete clown. I just wonder whether Scott Morrison's going to be fully briefed to shove a sock down the throat. I mean, she is a joke, this woman, and an absolute and utter lightweight."
MFW volunteers flooded companies who had ads on his show with calls and emails. One business says it received thousands of messages in just hours.
We've never called for anyone to be sacked. What we want is accountability and genuine remorse and a genuine commitment not to undertake that behaviour again.
Hundreds of advertisers pulled from the station, costing it millions. 9 months after making those comments, Jones departed 2GB.
All the best. Goodbye.
Brilliant, huh?
But it only took days for Triple M and Marty Sheargold to part ways. MFW did not start a campaign on him.
If you think about the demise of these really high-profile radio personalities that really dominated the airwave, it would indicate that as an audience, we're a bit tired of this type of programming.
Kyle Sandilands calls us pearl clutchers. I think he thinks we're just a group of older women who object to sexual content, and that's not true at all.
They say they have a 200,000 strong following. Behind the scenes, there are 30 volunteers and 5 part-time workers. Around 25% of that following are male.
People are tired of being the punching bags of men who run corporations which employ these terrible men, and we now have a way to fight back.
And it's anonymous tip-offs that fuel their campaigns.
There's a lot of people who work for government, for media, for industry who detest what's going on with people like Kyle Sandilands as well. They feel like it brings a stain on their industry.
Last financial year, almost half of the complaints made about decency standards on Australian radio were about the Kyle and Jackie O show.
Your whole just hanging out.
Since signing a $200 million 10-year contract with KIIS FM and expanding down south, MFW have had Kyle and Jackie O in their sights.
All the girls here, well, not all of them, but a lot of them have recorded themselves urinating.
Yeah.
And the boys will try and figure out who's made that wee. If you can't handle some just step back.
Like their 2GB campaign, volunteers note the companies that air ads during the duo's breakfast and National Drive Hour of Power shows and bombard them with these messages.
Absolutely shocked to see you listed as an advertiser.
You are enabling the vile, misogynistic, denigrating hate speech of Kyle Sandilands.
Is this really who you want associated with the ballet? I was really disappointed.
Yours in disgust. See you later, loser.
The group says they've had more than 700 advertisers either withdraw or review their advertising with the Kyle and Jackie O show.
Some of the biggest corporations in Australia who've agreed with us that they don't want to fund the filth.
Last month, KIIS owners ARN Media announced $40 million cutbacks over the next 3 years.
Advertisers chase audience, so once it reaches a point where the audience size doesn't justify the spend for any advertiser, they will pull the pin. Once they're losing that revenue and the math doesn't stack up, they can no longer afford to pay these expensive presenters.
For Jenny, these campaigns have come at a high personal cost.
I lived in a caravan for quite a while at one point. Because the threats were so violent and so personal, and my address had been found, all sorts of rape threats, violent threats, horrible things people would like to do to us, pictures of dismembered bodies, dick pics, all kinds of things. But you've then got to balance that with the cheering that we get to keep on going. So we feed off the support and try to ignore the horrible stuff.
But the witches are determined to keep fighting.
We understand 100% that we're on the right side of history, that the work we're doing needs to happen. We do like to think a lot of media companies are a little more careful now about what they broadcast and maybe even about who they employ. We think that's amazing. We think it's wonderful, and we're not going to stop.
Interesting in the Witches spokesperson there, where she talks about Kyle Sandilands, and I've got no love of Kyle either. I've written plenty of columns about how I think a lot of his content is absolutely vile, but she doesn't mention Jackie O at all. So I don't know if this is about targeting male presenters and presuming that they don't have a problem with Jackie O endorsing it. I don't quite get that. They had a go at me a while back, many years ago, and on a pretty petty issue, I thought. I mean, good luck to them if they want to do this. It's their right to be able to campaign, but I think...
Do you mean good luck to them?
Well, I think she needs to get a life for a, start. I mean, really, she's a bit obsessed.
Yeah.
She's obsessed.
I can see why people would have a problem with this, because it's kind of an extension...
Well, we just heard it was like it was the audience that's tired of this behaviour. Is it really the audience that's tired when you have a group pushing that kind of policing of language? I mean, it's one thing if it happens organically, right, and the fans and the listeners revolt, but when you've got a group, an organised group of people targeting advertisers, and they probably haven't even listened to the show, or they've cherry-picked parts of the show out of a 4-hour daily show. I don't know. I don't know if I feel very comfortable with that.
And they do harass these businesses. They ring them up and say, look, you shouldn't be spending money on that station.
Yeah, but...
I mean, it happened to me here.
Let's be clear, lots of lobby groups organise and put pressure, and they do it in all kinds of ways, right? So I can understand why you may not like them, and I think part of that will be a political misalignment as well. But
really,
I think at the end of the day, if what they're doing is organised activism, then that's just what it is. And if we have a problem with that, then we should have a problem when all sorts of actors do similar things, like when they target a soccer journalist because he said something about Anzac Day they don't like, and then they basically ruined his life, right? Like, and when that it's funny how when that happens, the people who are complaining about that don't have a problem with this, and the people who are complaining about this don't have a problem with that. And I just wonder if in the end we're all a bit hypocritical.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a statement from ARN, which is the station that owns KIIS FM. They sent it to us. They say that ARN has a strong and stable advertiser base who continue to get high-quality results through the platform. And I guess that's the proof will be in the pudding ultimately, won't it? The full statement can be found on our links page.